start this.
Yeah, we start slides. What do you see?
Are people seeing this, or are they seeing the?
I'm seeing the presenter view.
They're seeing the presenter view.
Okay.
What if we do new share and then this screen? Are you guys seeing the presenter view or the slides?
I'm just seeing it's not the presentation view. It's the the normal view.
So I guess we got to go back to the extended desktop.
So someone else is going to present all
this. That one's worked there. No, that's
okay,
there.
We choose that one.
Choose that one.
But you only have this the PowerPoint on this one. Okay.
Okay.
No?
Now?
Now we see just the normal slide, so this is fine.
Okay.
Good. Yeah, recording has started, so
okay.
Should be set.
I think we should be set.
Yeah.
You want me to stand here and then you stand over here for a second and then I'll introduce you? Hello, everyone. We will get started in just a moment. Right now we're seeing on screen. Okay. So I think Ricardo should just be able to start sharing and take over. That's what worked just a second ago. Okay. So you can introduce the question, speaker. So in the time that I'm introducing, I'll invite the speakers to start sharing the screen. And that should work. And then if we have issues, we should be right here. Okay. Well, I was talking to her, so we're what? Okay. Did you not hear me? Okay. Okay. Gotcha. All right, I guess we can go ahead and get started. Thank you all for being here today for this panel on training as grounds for collaboration across disciplinary boundaries. I'm excited to welcome our moderator for today's session, Iryna. Iryna has been working in Slovenia's social science data archives for more than 20 years. Iryna is a data archiving expert and long-term time trainer and leading the training working group on the level of consortium European Social Science Data Archives, says to Eric. She is leading training tasks in several SSH projects. So thank you, Iryna, and she will be introducing our speakers for today.
Yes, hello everyone. Our today panel is going to be split between online and face-to-face presence. And while introducing the first speaker, which is Ricardo Grafen, can I ask you, Ricardo, to perhaps start sharing the screen and let's see if that's going to work. So Ricardo Grafen works as a data station manager, social sciences at Data Archiving and Network Service, DANS. DANS is the Dutch National Center of Expertise and Repository for Research Data. Ricardo is involved in several and also national projects, including CESA, focusing on RDM and fair data support, engagement, and training. And Ricardo, just a second so that we figure out the split of the screens. I think it should work now. Yes. Just making the big screens and the speaker. Thanks for the support. Ricardo, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Iryna, and thank you for having me in this session. I'm really happy that I could join online And yeah, it's a bit sad, of course, not to be in the room, but I hope I can present to you a little bit about what we've done in the SHOCK project as part of the SSH training community activities that we've done in the project. So I'm here for myself, but also for my colleague Ellen Leenarts from DANS and several others that have been working on the SHOCK project to tell you a little bit about what we've done and especially talk to you about the training discovery toolkit that we've developed within this community. So you should now be seeing the slide on the SHOCK project, and the SHOCK project has ended on the 30th of April and was a project funded within the Horizon 2020 European funding. And it was a project relatively large with 53 partners to bring together the SSH part within the European Open Science Cloud. So we had quite a large budget and 40 months of time to develop aspects of the European Open Science Cloud, particularly focused to the social science and humanities community. And a lot of different partners and SSH ERICs were part of this project. And what I want to talk to you about is what we've done within the context of training. And I want to mention that though the project has been ending, there is a memorandum of understanding to bring further this work that we have been starting in the SHOCK project within the context of the SSH Open Cluster. So this is now a big collaboration with major SSH ERICs and also a lot of different institutes that together want to work further on the SSH part of the EOS and also on generally bringing the social sciences and humanities closer together and working together on important aspects, including the training activities that we've started. So what we've done in SHOCK is we were part of Work Package 6, which focused on fostering communities and empowering users and building expertise. So this was really on building a community around training for the various partners. So what we did is we organized training events and created training materials during the project. We also had established an SSH training community where the idea was that we wanted to help trainers in the SSH to interact and exchange. And we also built a couple of tools for them to make the training activities within this domain a bit more easy and support each other and also ensure that we can exchange materials. And one of the things that I want to talk to you in a bit more detail is the SSH Training Discovery Toolkit that we developed, or short, the TDT. And the goal of the TDT was to make existing training resources better discoverable, because what we've seen is that a lot of materials are out there already that trainers would like to reuse, but oftentimes you're not aware of those materials, you cannot find them, or you would need to know where they are. And the idea was that we would develop a tool where these materials could be discovered. So we wanted to create a catalog that lists good quality resources that trainers can reuse. And the idea was to do this by documenting these training materials with metadata so that discovery would be easier. And the website where the tool is available is trainingtoolkit.sshopencloud.eu. So the first version of the TDT was launched in April 2020. And it then contained around 76 items of 41 sources. And so the sources are different organizations such as the ERICs, so including CESTA and Clarin and other ERICs, as well as organizations who are involved in training within the SSH domain. And from those sources, we selected a couple of items that we wanted to describe to give an indication of what kinds of training materials are available for reuse. And here you can see a pie chart that indicates the types of materials and the topics that these materials were covering. So we have worked on the topic list and redefined it a little bit, but as you can see, a lot of the materials we have and had in the first release were related to research data management and fair data. But we also had quite some domain-specific training materials, for instance, on text encoding or programming and data visualizations, and also quite some materials on open science, but also a range of different topics, including didactics and some other more specific materials. So it was really a wide range of materials with sort of a particular focus also on research data management and sort of these generic materials that would be handy for anybody in the domain. And what we did between April 2020 and April 2022 was that we updated the TDT based on the community feedback. So we really made use of all of the people that we've gathered in the SHOCK project as part of the SSH training community, but also training coordinators and the SSH infrastructures to see how we can make the tool more valuable for them. So we improved the look and feel. We made some changes to the about page, to the facets and the search results. We added additional content, which was done by curators during our sprints. And importantly, we aligned with the evolving metadata standards for learning materials, which I think is an important thing that has come forward by the community in the past, let's say, 2 years. So there was the work of the RDA group on education and training materials was very important. And we also provided a mapping to schema.org, which I will show you in a second. So the final version of the TDT is available on this link, and it now contains more than 100 sources. And from these sources, we have example materials with a total of more than 250 items. So it's quite a large list of resources of things that people can reuse for their training materials. We had adapted the data model behind the information that we display in the TDT. So here you can see all the information we have for each source and item, and it follows the recommendations by the RDA group. And we also have a couple of vocabularies attached to these metadata fields to make it reusable, and also so that it can integrate into other catalogs that are being developed that we will maybe hear a little bit on later as well. So if you go to training-sukut.sshOpenCloud.eu, you will find the final version, and you can have a look at all of the materials. It includes, again, a lot of materials on research data management, such as the data management expert guide, as you see here. And importantly, we have mapped the metadata to schema.org. So all the metadata can be exported in JSON-LD format, which makes it reusable for other catalogs that might be interested in SSH training materials. And the vocabularies that we use to describe the data are all published in the SSH Vocabulary Commons. So people can also reuse those. And I think that was one of the things that we've focused on in the last year of the project, to really make sure that other communities can reuse the things that we have been developing for this project. And before I give the floor to the next speaker, I just want to briefly mention the sort of challenges and lessons learned that we have that might be relevant for other communities. So what we really noticed is that a good quality catalog is quite a lot of work and really needs this community. So we really needed efforts and experts for the curation of the information. We needed people to be involved and active in suggesting resources. We wanted to update the data model with the community agreed metadata standards, but this was sometimes a bit challenging because the field is ever evolving. So I think this sort of staying in touch with the different communities is very important, which is also why I think this session today is really nice to bring together the different communities that are working on training. Yeah, we also wanted to align with other catalogs and other developments in the EOS, which I think we've also started to do and will do more in the future. So this is really the start. The project has been enabling us to create this resource, and we hope that it will be reused in the future and also be integrated through the SSH Marketplace and also the EOS Future Knowledge Hub. And I believe we will hear a bit more about EOS Future later as well. And I think for us, really, what is important is to keep in mind this common goal that we all have of making training resources more fair. And hopefully the TDT has made a contribution to that. And that was what I wanted to share with you. So I would like to thank you for your attention. And if we have questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you, Ricardo. Yeah. So one of the elements that I forgot to say at the beginning is that we start today's session in a way that we are going to have a bit shorter presentation, but a bit more time for the discussion at the end. We set some questions for the panelists to discuss. So I think it will be also of interest to you. Could I ask you to help me change the sliding, I think. And until we do that, I'll present our next speaker. So this is going to be Helen Clare. And I would like to thank her for coming here. And Helen has over 20 years experience working in training and staff development in the education sector. For the last 7 years, she has specialized in supporting skills for open research in DISC and the Eos Synergies and Open Eos Future Projects. She also leads this digital research community, which has over 400 members. And I think we are set. Please, Helen.
Hi, everyone. Can everybody hear okay? Yep, okay. My name is Helen Clare, and I work for JISC in the UK, which is the UK's National Research and Education Network. But today I'm here to talk about the Open Science Training Coordinators Community of Practice. This is a community of practice that's been going for about 5 years now. I think it's coming up to that. And I'm going to give a bit of a background about what the activities are, what the community does. But essentially, I'm going to cover sort of three parts. As I say, one is just a background of the community. The second part is looking at the actual activities that we do to bring different communities, different parts of our community together. And then finally, I've just got some quotes and comments from some of our members who I asked for input before the presentation today. So just a bit of background, and say the community is coming up to its 5th anniversary. It started in 2018, and it was started by an organisation called OPENAire, which is a cross-European research infrastructure. And it was originally run by OPENAire, but now it's led by members. So I'm co-chair of this community and have been for the last 18 months, along with Venkat, who's speaking a little bit later. He is also one of the chairs. So one thing to point out is to say it's actually for training coordinators. So while we do some quite practical topics around training delivery, we often look at training at a strategic level, whether that's within a project, an institution, or indeed a national level. So, but we are a discipline transcending network. So this isn't just a social science network, although we do have a lot of members there. So we now have over 100 members, I think it's about 113. And we're quite active, and we're in many different countries, mainly Europe, but some from North America and Australia. In terms of sort of how the community has evolved, is it started off with OPENAire, and it was quite an informal community, and actually still is quite informal. But we have tried to give a little bit of formality, to try and give some clear vision, aims, etc., about what we're doing. So you can see on the slides, and these will be shared afterwards. So if there's any detail, you can have a look later. So we want it to be an informal network that's aiming to promote open science and FAIR. And we want to sort of give a collective voice for the training community and actively collaborate. One of the things that's really important for our community is the other values. So we do obviously advocate for open science. We are informal, friendly, and cooperative. And we do transcend disciplines, but as well as that, we transcend nations and projects. And for me, the idea that it transcends projects is really useful, because often we can get bogged down in our project KPIs and goals, etc., and sometimes forget the bigger picture of collaboration. And that, to me, is one of the values of this community. In terms of some of the past project activities, so we have different types of activities. Some of them focus around problems. So, for example, we ran an event around GDPR and training when the new regulations came in place, and we were all facing the same problems. We do a lot around EOS, the European Open Science Cloud, which I think has been mentioned several times before, because there are several projects and training coordinators from those projects represented in the community. And then we've also run similar events to this, where we bring other communities together. So part of it is about sort of, as I said, providing practical tips. Part of it is around looking more strategically around how we can support and develop skills. In 2020, so it's about halfway through the lifetime of the community, we ran a survey. So we wanted to get feedback from the community members. And as I say, this will be available afterwards to look at in more detail. But what people valued was that cross sort of European community, cross-discipline, that exchange of experience, and the fact that it is a very sort of cooperative and friendly place to be. But one thing that came out of it was that people did want a little bit more structure to the community. So in 2021, we tried some new approaches. So we set some aims for the year. One, we wanted to grow the community. We wanted to raise the profile of the community, and we wanted to support EOSC. So we had a whole range of different activities, and that worked quite well to give us something to work towards and try and focus our activities. One of the activities that works really well is that we have a monthly call. So once a month, we'll meet, but the focus of that is somebody from the community volunteers to present some aspect of their practice or their project. And so the first half of the meeting usually covers that, and then the second half usually covers the activities and projects that we're working on. And that really has made a difference to community engagement. It has driven up membership. So in that year, 2021, we pretty much doubled our membership and doubled our engagement in terms of people who were actually attending. So that was really useful. So those were all really useful activities that we've been trying out. Our current activities, I'll just give a highlight of some of these. These involve how to make training materials fair. So it's quite nice that Ricardo did an introduction to this. So what we have here is a perfect example of this cross-disciplinary approach. We were aware that there were efforts to try and make training materials fair that had come from the Elixir life sciences community, and they'd come up with their 10 simple rules. And we wanted to sort of share experiences from different communities about how they'd actually managed to do this. So we've got various case studies that we've brought together from these different communities, from languages and social sciences and life sciences, to try and pull this together to be a practical article, but also one that gathers those experiences and kind of focuses on the differences across those different communities. So look out for that when we publish, hopefully soon. We're also, as I say, working on supporting training in EOSC, which I think Venkat will talk more about later. We're looking at quality assurance of training materials and focusing on our experiences in delivering online training and developing a handbook. So these are some of the flavour of activities and a little bit of history, but I just wanted to highlight some of our members and share some of what they find valuable about this community. So Hugh Shanahan is Professor of Open Science at Royal Holloway in London in the UK, and he runs CoData RDA summer schools, which up until becoming part of this community have been quite technical and focusing on data science skills, obviously, but he found that there needed to be more involvement of more social aspects in the program. So that led to a broader curriculum, and so an actual concrete change in how they delivered that summer school. So again, valuing the experiences from different communities. Inge is an expert in open science in Ghent in Belgium, and she again values that fact that we have different approaches, and she mentions, again, follows on quite nicely from Ricardo, this idea of catalogues and how we join the different catalogues up so we can make the most of what's being produced across different disciplines. So we actually ran a session at the Open Science Fair last year, specifically around bringing these catalogues together. So again, that was another nice concrete output. We also have a Marie who has come to this community and wasn't aware of the range of different open science activities around training in different disciplines, and found it quite reassuring. She found it an eye-opener and found it reassuring that while every community has its different problems and different approaches, there are similar issues, and we can share and learn from that. And finally, Catherine, as I say, she is looking at various different fields. She's come from food science, and one of the quotes I love from her, she finds that participating in the community of practice is easy, stress-free, and brings great rewards. And I do manage another community within JISC, which I have to say is a lot harder to get engagement. And the community of practice is one of the highlights of my months because it's full of really enthusiastic practitioners who are open to collaboration and open to sharing. And I think that's all I'm going to say. Yeah.
And I think we need to switch to an online presenter again. It's good to be here too. Yes. Thanks. So our next speaker is going to be Maja Dolinar. Maja, if you could share your screen, I think it should come up in a few seconds.
I will.
And in between, I'll present you. So Maja Dolinar is head of digital preservation at the Slovenian Social Science Data Archives. She deals with digital preservation policies, internal workflows, procedures, and documentation related to long-term storage. But she's also responsible for acquisition and maintaining certificates for trustworthy digital repositories. Maja is involved in several international projects and is a member of Tools and Services and Trust Working Group at CESDA. And her presentation will focus on one of the elements that we are doing in the retrain project that I already shortly presented yesterday in the CESDA session. And I think, Maja, you are on and you can start. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Irena. So hi, my name is Maja, as Irena said, and I'm one of the coordinators of the Retrain Plus community of practice together with Irena, and we're going to be presenting today to you shortly about the Retrain Plus project and then the community of practice that we are developing within this project. So the Retrain Plus project is basically European Union's 2020 project that brings together research infrastructures, core facilities, business management schools, and European University in this new innovative concept to transform the access and empowerment of human resources for national and international scientific facilities in Europe. So the Retrain Plus project basically aims to transform the skills base to drive the professionalization, efficiency, and this long-term value creation of European research infrastructures and core facilities. So in order to reach these goals, there are several activities that are planned throughout the duration of the projects. So in addition to designing and delivering this specific cross-field executive programs at the postdoctoral level, and then in addition to train the trainers kit and a coaching program for managers, we're also developing a community of practice to basically structure opportunities of knowledge and best practices sharing through this peer learning approach. So the Retrain Plus community of practice is an online forum that offers open discussions about the challenges of specific managerial and operational issues within research infrastructures and core facilities, as well as user-generated content. So with targeted workshops and online webinars that feature presentations from experts and basically give interactive examples, we aim to address specific managerial and operational needs of managers and operators of research infrastructures and core facilities. And our target audiences are current managers and operators in research infrastructures and core facilities of all career stages. So the community is led by CESDA-ERIC, so the Consortium of European Social Science Data Archives, and specifically by the Slovenian Social Science Data Archives, which I and my colleague Irena are presenting. We will be also supported by the University of Milan and the Elixir European Bioinformatics Institutes. So the Retrain Plus community of practice basically consists of several activities. Firstly, there are 4 community of practice workshops that will be organized by the end of 2024. Preferably, we aim to have these face-to-face, of course, if the circumstances will enable this. These workshops will be a meeting place for representatives from several research infrastructures and core facilities with experts in management sciences of universities to basically exchange experiences, learn from each other, and discuss possible means of overcoming common challenges. And these events will preferably be one-day workshops where a mix of presentations and practical elements will stimulate interaction between participants. The first workshop in this series already took place within the IASSIST conference on Tuesday, and I'm going to talk just shortly about that a bit later on. So the second activity within this community of practice is the main online content, which we call online webinars that take place every 2 months, and they occur every second Friday of the month. The next 2 events within this year are going to be taking place in September and November. And then we also have other online content. So in between the events, the online community of practice will be active by enabling interaction basically within the online community platform. And here we will share relevant articles, tools, videos, and other materials that we hope that will stimulate interaction and active participation within the group. So the purpose of our community of practice is to develop relationships, to share experiences and best practice examples, to learn and develop practice, and also to encourage collaboration across scientific domains and country borders. We have put a lot of time and effort in examining the appropriate online tool that we could use to build this online community. And there was basically a need to find a tool that would enable us to create a safe and secure online space where the members of the community of practice would interact with each other, would share knowledge, would help each other, and also create valuable networks. It needs to be noted that there was no funding within the project to pay for the tool, so the platform license. So the choice of a tool or a platform was highly dependent on actual affordability and then also sustainability after the project ends. So we created a detailed list of desired features that we kind of desire to have in our online community. So this would mean to have like a user-friendly and intuitive user interface, that it would be easy to set up, easy to access, that you could brand the community to kind of portray the overall project branding, ability to provide engaging learning experience, ability to manage members and to set up member profiles, ability to message all community members, to set up public and private group, because we want a part of the group to be public to attract new members, and the other part to be more closed, where all the actual conversations and sharing of information would be happening. Then the ability to post various materials, so either text, images, videos, and so on. An ability to have also community posts and questions, and of course to be compliant with the GDPR at the end of the day. We have evaluated 5 different commonly used community platforms. Initially, these were Mighty Networks, Tribe, and Discourse. On all these free community tools come with a variety of features like easy content posting, content management, members profile, support for rich media, discussions moderation, and more. The initial evaluation ended by proposing to use Mighty Networks platform, since it gave the most functionality for the pricing that we were supposed to be paying. But later we were also introduced to the Meters Space platform. However, due to a really high price of this platform and the difficulty in setting it up quickly, we have quickly put that option to rest. So upon examining all the possible platforms and discussing this with other members of the project team in terms of the functionalities of the platforms, ease of management, and the pricing, we have decided to go with the free social media option, as it does provide us with the most of the functionalities we want to use and seem to be more sustainable in the long run. So we decided to go with the Facebook private group and a Facebook public page to promote our community of practice. Sustainability was really key when deciding on which kind of platform and the design of the overall community of practice to take on. For many individuals who will participate in a community of practice, the access to targeted resources, expertise, and professional conversation leads to basically significant shifts in thinking and also practice. that hopefully will continue to influence them long after the community has also ended. So this is why it is important that the community of practice does have a certain sustainability plan in place in order to basically ensure that all of this collective knowledge generated for the work of the community is made available and benefits as many people as possible. So in our sustainability plan, we plan to transfer the facilitation of this community of practice to another institution. Preferably, this will be the University of Milan, who is the initiator of the project, that we hopefully manage and stimulate the community after the completion of the project. However, if there will be no successor after the project Retrain Plus ends, then we will be forced to kind of close the group, to archive it, and which will mean that there will be no possibility of adding new content to the group or new members. So before I conclude this short presentation, I'd just like to mention that the first workshop of this community of practice took place at IASSIST on Tuesday. And this workshop tackled two important issues of leadership in research infrastructure and core facilities. This is namely data and policy management and team building. Our next webinar that we plan within the Facebook group is going to take place on September 9th. We haven't decided yet on the topic, but as soon as we arrange everything, all of the information will be provided for in the Facebook group. At the end, I would just like to invite all of you who are interested in participating in our group to kind of check this link here and apply for membership and basically join us in our efforts to share knowledge and experiences and learn from each other. So thank you.
Thank you, Maja. I would just like to add that we are adding all the content, or at least summaries of the content, also to the public pages under the public page of the project. So we realized that not everyone is eager to use Facebook. Me actually didn't have it until I needed to open an account for this. And if there's a need, we also offer direct link for the event, so people don't need to necessarily join Facebook if this is the case. With this, I would like to present our next speaker, and we have a speaker here in the audience. So our next speaker is going to be Sonja Bezjak, and she works at the Slovenia Social Science Data Archives. As you see, we are quite in numbers here. Sonja is leading research data acquisition and ingest, and she provides training on data management for designated communities. And she's also promoting open science and open data principles. Sonja is also taking part in several international projects and is a member of several working groups in CESDA, and she's going to present one of the community projects that CESDA is involved in. Here you go. Yeah.
So hello, everyone. I hope you hear me well. Thank you for the presentation, Iryna. So today I will talk actually about the Coordinate project, which stands for Cohort Community Research and Development Infrastructure Network for Access Throughout Europe. This is the European project that ADP, our archive, is taking part, and also several other social science data archives. Some colleagues are also here today with us. So the project is about tracking children's well-being as they grow up in a harmonized when they grow up using a harmonized instrument and research design in European countries. Well, the project is funded by European Commission, and it supports, I would say, another research infrastructure, which is called GUIDE, Growing Up in a Digital Europe. It's somehow trying to be an answer on the fact that there is no single data source to support the comparative analysis of the well-being of children and young people across Europe. So the idea behind this to get in the future an important source of high quality longitudinal statistical evidence to support the development of social policy, which will enhance the well-being of children and young people in Europe. So today I will actually talk about the training activities that we coordinate in this project. Some of them has already happened, some are still planned. So the main idea of these training activities is to provide secondary users knowledge and skills which are necessary to analyze data and to better understand the methodology of comparative survey research. And there's another goal actually to introduce data sets and services which are already out there available to researchers, but maybe they're not aware of it. In the next slides, I will talk about pitch events, training on data management, interactive training, statistical courses, summer schools, and training for non-scientific national stakeholders. Our work package is actually somehow supporting other work packages, of course, especially transnational access visits. The idea of these visits is that researchers get access to research infrastructures which are relevant for this topic, and not only that they get access to data, that they get also access to or personnel support, so support from experts which understand this data and their infrastructures. The program is open to academic researchers, but also to those who work outside academy, like policy practitioners and others. There are some bursaries also available, but of course, this information needs to be somehow communicated towards the audiences. So far, we have organized 2 pitches. Within those, some research infrastructures were already, and then their data sets were already presented. And 35 people actually applied and 25 were accepted. So they're now waiting for their visits. The next call will be at the end of August. So we are still planning another pitch, and we will also do the videos which will enable researchers to get some more information about those organizations and their data sets which are taking part in the project. Here you see the list, the consortium partners which are participating in these visits. As you can see, there is quite a diversity of countries and organizations from Netherlands, Austria, Germany, UK, also Ireland, and of course there is a diversity of data sets that are available. Besides this, there is a special set of activities related to training on data management planning. Actually, a workshop is planned, which is supposed to pay attention on challenges when working with secondary and longitudinal data. Especially we will be working with the ethical and legal issues. So these activities are still in progress. We will conduct the training in the beginning of next year. There is another quite big activity going on, interactive training statistical courses, which is performed by our colleagues from Croatian Social Science Data Archives. There are 3 two-day face-to-face courses planned. One was already taking place in May in Zagreb, and it went well. There were applicants and they were joining face-to-face event in Zagreb. So next training is planned for early 23. There are also summer schools in plan. Actually, the first one is already advertised. It is organized by University of Essex for the second half of June this year, and the other 3 they will be performed by another partners taking part in this project and are planned for the next years. And there is also this training for non-scientific researchers and stakeholders. The aim is actually to broaden network of users beyond those working in a university environment, and also to include policy professionals. So the plan is to host Train the Trainer workshop, in which up to 10 national champions will be introducing the concepts and design of the course and taught how to administer the course. And later on, each national champion is supposed to organize 3 to 4 courses per country. So to conclude, so we are like aiming to achieve these goals by 2 approaches. We are investing in reuse of available data on child well-being. We are also investing in gaining skills needed to reuse these data sets that are already out there. To achieve this, there are incentives like bursaries, as I have already mentioned, and there is a support from experts available. And of course, we are doing this promotional and raising awareness activities as I presented to you. So this is so far from me. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker is also joining us online, and that will be the last speaker, and then we'll have a discussion. So Venkart, if you could in between start sharing the slides until I present you. So Venkat is a training officer at the OPENAire, but he's also a work package lead for training and skills in the Eos Future Project. He's a passionate advocate for good research data management, open research, and the FAIR principles. And previous roles included lead training at the Digital Curation Center and working in the field of development and biology, where he was also involved in a biological repository that collected image data. So still, yeah, I don't think we see your screen yet. Venkart?
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm having some difficulties with sharing my screen. Can you actually share my presentation?
Yes, we can do that as well.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had the same problem yesterday. I don't know why. Zoom is crashing on me.
So just a second so that we change the screen again.
Thank you.
Yeah, just that we solve all the technical elements. I think that we see the screen, but we would just like to also to see you as a presenter, I think, or yeah, let's see. One of the corners. Yeah, I think it's okay, and I'll be changing the slides. There are not so many, so just tell me. So here you go.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Irena, for introducing and inviting here. Yes, greetings from Scotland. I'm sorry I couldn't actually come in person. I really wish I could have. So my name is Venkat. I am the work package lead for the Eos Future Project for the training and skills, but my official employer is OPENAire, and I'm the training officer there. Indeed, I have other connections with some of the other panelists here today. I'm also involved in the community of practice for the open science training coordinators and other things going on as well. So if you could go to the next slide, please.
Let's see if I can do it. No. Sorry?
No.
To figure it out. Yeah. Okay, I will do that. Thanks. Yeah, it is.
Thank you very much. So yes, I'm here to speak to you about the Eos Future Project. So this is basically the next phase of building the Eos, which has been mentioned so many times already, the European Open Science Cloud. And what we're trying to do is build this system of systems, and it's based on these three key tenets. So this interoperable nature of the EOS core, the EOS exchange, the integration of data resources from science cluster communities. So there are lots of 5 key science clusters that are being focused on, including shock, which has been mentioned here already. And this will be onboarded onto the EOS platform. And we also have this aim to involve directly users in the co-design and implementation of the platform. So this is meant to be a collaborative effort. It's a very technical project, but here I'm representing work package 9, which is the training and skills. So next slide, please. So yes, this gives you a bit of an overview, a better idea of what's going on across the project. In the bottom right-hand corner of the diagram here, you can see that I'm focusing on training, and this is to keep people informed, trained, and supported to use the portal. So specific training relating to EOS, not only EOS Future, but EOS in general. Next slide, please. So the training and skills work package, it has 3 main tasks. One is to create a training program across the different stakeholders that might be involved or directly participate in the EOS or use the EOS. We have 4 of these that were identified, and these have been identified in various other documents as well. So we're talking about the end users of EOS, whether they're researchers or citizen scientists, that kind of people. We also want to focus on providers to EOS in terms of services, in terms of data, in terms of software, and so forth. Thirdly, there are those that we call facilitators and intermediaries. So these may be funders, librarians, IT staff, including also here data stewards. Fourthly, we have trainers. Indeed, we want to create a trainer network, and we specifically identified this as a stakeholder or actor group. There is a 5th group as well, which also cuts across all these actor groups, but also provides training within the project. And this is these 5 groups essentially form the basis of the training program that is being delivered. So we've been doing a lot of design and planning, and we've recently started delivering workshops. The second bullet point here, which I'll focus on a bit more in one of the slides to come, is this platform that's being built. It's called the Knowledge Hub. That's the title of these slides. I'll discuss it in a few more moments in more depth. And also the third point here is the outreach. Indeed, I'm also involved in the community of practice training coordinators that was presented earlier, but we also try to engage with other projects that are building towards the EOS that were funded in the same funding round, other communities as well. So next slide, please. So yes, the community of practice of training coordinators, I don't want to get into this too much since it's already been discussed, but because I'm involved in this community as well, and as well as the Eos Future Project and various others indeed, not just myself, then we decided to establish 2 task forces, which just started earlier this year. And one is focusing on training in EOS, and the other one is quality assurance of training resources. And so the aim of these task forces is to come out with some outputs in the form of checklists, guidance, documentation, and so forth, which will be useful to the EOS Future Project, but also will be very useful beyond the lifetime of the Eos Future Project and the community in general. So I've just put in brackets here, collating use cases from across different disciplines. Helen described this in much more detail, much better than what I'm about to do, and that's that we are actually writing a paper about community and how we're trying to make things fair, and that's in progress. So next slide, please. So this is my final slide, but the knowledge hub then. And so this is essentially built of two things. One is a learning management system, or LMS, such as Moodle, and the other half is a training catalog. Now, I think Ricardo already mentioned this in our talk. Indeed, we are in discussion with 4 pilot use cases, including shock, also with diarrhea, elixir, and EOS pillar. And what we did there was to actually look at what metadata that they were using in their respective catalogs and how we could align that with the catalog that we're trying to build with the EOS Knowledge Hub. Indeed, we have also used the RDA ETHRD interest group minimum metadata for training resources. So this a list of 14 core fields. We've taken those and adapted them slightly depending on the context of the training materials in the way that they're going to be onboarded onto the training catalog, because we're going to use different methods. One might be aggregating automatically. On the other hand, we may do manual uploading of resources as well. And for those 2 different instances, we have different criteria or strictness for the recommended and mandatory fields. So with this a pragmatic approach, we believe, to ensure that there is inclusivity. And yes, indeed, we are trying to ensure fair by design as much as possible. And I say as much as possible because I don't think you're ever going to get fully fair, especially when you're talking about sensitive materials and so forth. Maybe not so much with training materials, but you can never rule that out, and indeed also IPR and so forth. So I mentioned that the Moodle is based on LMS, and the idea for this knowledge hub is that it will become the de facto home for EOS training. And the roadmap for this is that we're going to hopefully have a first beta version out by the end of this month, and we are hoping to have a full production version out by about September. So we're looking for other catalogs to join us, especially we're talking about this very important issue of sustainability. And we believe that the Knowledge Hub will be a suitable home for long-term preservation of training resources related to EOS and training in EOS. So if there are any other catalogs out there from projects or anything like that, which are maybe coming to an end and need a home, then this might be the place to do it. So I will end there, and indeed we'll be having questions, and I welcome any questions at that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Venkat. So perhaps we take a few minutes if there are any questions from the audience before we move to panel discussions. So is anyone wants to add a question? So perhaps we move to the questions, and I would like to invite Sonja and Helen up here. Just think. Yeah. So we prepared a few questions. Like I just tried to put all the online speakers to the screen, so we'll see them as well. For that, I think you can pin on that one.
Hello. Oh.
Is it working? Okay. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. I'll just put it a bit down. Okay. Let's see if we need one of the screens. I can change that as well later on. So one of the first topics that I would like to discuss with our speakers today, and also if anyone from the audience wants to comment, that is welcome. So first topic is focusing on online delivery, and what we had as a discussion is, in the past few years, we are really shifting more towards online delivery, also because of COVID. With these, we are reaching, or at least we are hoping to reach larger communities, but is it really working? Is it the best way to go? And my question is, what are, in your opinion, the benefits and obstacles in delivering an online event or course, and perhaps also specificities of a hybrid event? And perhaps we can go in the direction of the presentations as they were. So Ricardo, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, thank you, Irena. So I think we are kind of still learning what the best options would be. I think we are really forced due to COVID to move online. And I think we have sort of tried to make the best out of it in a way. And I think now we are just now exploring the possibilities of hybrid options. I think, to me, the benefits of online meetings are definitely that you can reach people that might not be able to travel for health reasons, but also for other reasons. And I think it can scale. But I think the biggest problem is that it's really hard to have discussions, right? And I think what we are doing now more and more is that we have a combination where you have the sort of knowledge transfer, or the presentations online, so people can just watch it. But whenever you want to have a more detailed discussion, you would want to meet. So sort of combining the strengths of both, I think, would be, in my opinion, a way to move forward.
Yes, thanks. Helen?
Yeah, the interesting thing about the community that I work with, in fact, both the main communities, is that they're both online and always have been. So we haven't really had so much of a transition. They've always been online. And part of that is because of the nature of the communities in terms of trying to bring people together across wide geographical areas. I think Ricardo has highlighted most of the benefits are there about, the geography, the inclusivity, but obviously there's lots of aspects of the inclusivity around health, personal circumstances, cost, but there's also the idea of people's personal preferences. And, the online approach allows people who might not speak up in a big room full of, face-to-face people to actually get involved. And I think that's an important point really to remember about communities, is that everybody brings something different or gets something different out of a community. And one of the models that really helped me when I was working with setting up a community was the model from the Center for Scientific Collaboration and Community Engagement. I'll tweet it afterwards if anybody's interested. But they have a community participation model, and it's not a path. It's not saying that you have to get from one part of the model to the next. It's that different members of the community might want to, at any stage, be consuming information, just being passive and consuming. They may want to just contribute, so just share something. They may get to collaborating, and then also sort of co-creation is kind of the ultimate. And I think, as Ricardo's highlighted, maybe parts of that are easier online than others, but it's not necessarily that a community isn't working. If somebody's just listening, I think we have to be conscious of that. I think that's all I say.
Yeah, thanks. Maja, can I invite you to answer the same question?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so I agree with what was already said, that of course it does increase, I guess, participation from people who would not be able to join otherwise, perhaps from some geographical reasons, or I don't know, maybe also like health reasons. But in terms of the benefits of virtual events, I would say that the most in-person events are kind of limited in size of the venue. So if you get online, that means that you have a bigger space to work with, and a lot more people can participate if they want to. And of course, you don't have any of these external influencing factors, such as maybe, I don't know, weather or like transport or whatever else. is out there. One huge benefit that I see in online events is basically the analytics that you can have, because digital events basically offer really easy access to analytics. You can see presentation views, you can see how many questions there were asked during the session. You can also report on how many people clicked or reacted or commented or made any sort of impression and so on. So you can basically have more insight into this, how efficient or how effective the event in real time was, that you can basically then boost on next time. And of course, online presentation is also a way of saving money. You don't need to kind of book any venues or catering or so on. The challenges I see in virtual events is time zones, because of course, if you have like really an international event, it's really hard to define a time that's appropriate for people coming from various parts of the world. And of course, online events also means that you are behind your computer, and we all know how it goes. You are on a conference and then you click on emails, click on news, click on all sorts of things on your computer, which are basically distracting you for basically paying attention to the actual event. Another barrier I see is also maybe technology and accessibility features. So online events usually have to have some sort of a platform to be hosted on, in addition to Zoom, as we see here, the WebEx platform and so on. And this is usually quite expensive to afford. And so from the organization side, you have to kind of have the technological team and also the funds to kind of support these kind of events in this way. And of course, the remote attendees are not in the room together, so you kind of lose this one-on-one connections that happen maybe not during the event, but maybe during the breaks, where a lot of discussions and a lot of collaborations start to happen. So I think the future of events would be some sort of a hybrid form, as Ricardo mentioned. I see it like an opportunity to include more people, so to have an in-person event in addition to the online version, so that people who are not able to join in person can still participate and hear what the latest news and developments in the field are. So yeah, I think that this is the way to go forward, but that of course means a lot of effort in organizing such events, because hybrid, it means in-person organization and also online organization, so it's double the work.
Yeah, thanks. I would just like to comment what Maja was saying, that we trainers had to learn so many new tools in the last 2 years, to actually involve people that are coming to the online events, because it was not only Zoom, or we used another platform before and says that, but it's all these small support tools that you need to engage, so that you can do the game that you would otherwise do in the room. And let me move forward to Sonja.
Okay, thank you. So speaking from the Slovenian perspective and comparing the trainings that we had before COVID, and I don't know if I can say after COVID or within COVID. Of course, there are many benefits, because before, for example, we have been struggling to get 20 people into the room with face-to-face events, and with online activities, we got suddenly like 90 people. This was really a success, and I think that it's really a great opportunity to promote concepts, ideas, new tools, to raise awareness on some topic. Is really useful to communicate online. But if you have something to be done more intensively, or if you want more collaborative work, then there are several barriers for sure. And yeah, I miss face-to-face events. So I think that for the future, probably it would be really a great combination to use both channels.
Thank you. Venkart, what's your take on that? You are also a trainer for a long time. So what's your experience here?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm not sure how much I can add to what's already been said. I think it's some very good answers. I think one thing we have to recognize, though, is even without COVID having hit us, this is always going to happen, that we were moving in this direction and we needed to get used to it. Maybe COVID just accelerated that, and we are where we are now. And indeed, technology had to catch up as well. And it's amazing how much has been developed in the last couple of years alone, I think. So in terms of the benefits, I'm going to speak from another hat that I have, which is as one of the co-chairs of the Co-Data RDA Schools of Research Data Science. And a lot of the students that we have there are mainly from low and middle income countries, LMICs. So certainly doing online delivery, we were forced into doing online delivery. We used to have in-person schools, and indeed we're going to have one later this year. But having online delivery, I know, reduced the cost substantially for so many of these students from LMICs. And it certainly became a more inclusive thing for them. And I think that was a huge benefit. Because especially trying to run something with very minimal funding, this is very difficult, and online delivery makes things so much cheaper. One thing I will say, though, I think no one else mentioned it, choosing the platform that you use. Our experience from these schools is we have participants from many countries that are on sanctions lists. And a lot of the technologies that are used for online platforms such as Zoom are based in the US, and that means that they may not operate in some countries that have sanctions. And this could potentially form an obstacle to participation from individuals in those countries. You can get around it through VPNs and so forth, but it is a consideration. And in this world of open research and open science, we're trying to engage anyone and everyone, and it's a consideration. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So this is an additional point that we are not considering that much when we have events in Europe. You just think everything works. You know, at the beginning, I think it was like an element. I cannot install this on my computer. I need my admin, etc., etc. But I think now most of us have the tools. But as you said, you know, it might not work the same when you're talking with and when you want to engage colleagues from other countries. So let us now move to our second discussion topic that we have for today. And I would like to talk about the communities. So what we presented today are basically involvement in different communities. And what we see is the communities are, you know, popping out. We are all trying to develop something. And so we probably don't want to compete here as it is, but communities need to exchange specific information between peers. So I think it's, you know, what we see today is one thing is community of practice when we are really interdisciplinary and we work on that. But then we also see, you know, coordinate and what we'll have in retrain when we have specific communities because we have specific topics to be discussed. But my question here is, you know, how many communities are enough? But also, you know, it's kind of a question, how do we actually gain new member and how to encourage current members to get more involved? I know some of you have more experience than others in this, but let's see what are your opinions. Ricardo, can we start with you again, perhaps?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, then I can say all of the things first reacting on this. Thank you. I think this is a big issue and a big question because I think there's just a lot of things going on. So I think everybody recognizes this problem, right? So I think it's a very, very hard question to answer. What I think is a very nice example is from this community of practice where actually the members themselves sort of create the program, right? And I think this is something that probably helps with the community if you really let the members decide on what are the things you want to discuss, what are the things they want to learn. So trying to sort of engage them in that way. I think it works in some ways and it doesn't work in others, depending on the context. So I guess if a community sort of evolves from a need that is there, that might be different than if a community involves because a project says we want this and this is the time frame that we have. So I think there are difficulties sometimes if you want to establish a community because you have a project and this has to happen in this sort of time frame, which is I think also what we saw in the shock project, that when the project is finished, it's difficult to maintain this, I think. So what I think is nice to encourage this involvement and also have this collaboration between the communities is actually having a plan for sort of continuity, especially for this project-based communities. So I think that's something to consider, I would say. And maybe I want to give the floor to the rest, and I might comment on other things.
Yeah, thanks. Helen?
There's quite a lot of questions there and quite a lot of things that we could cover. So I'll just throw out some of my thoughts. In terms of how many communities are enough, I guess Ricardo's sort of summarized some of the key points there, that some of the communities are kind of forced by, and created by a project, some arise by need, but I think they only keep going, I think, if there's an interest there. So I think it will succeed or not, but that is unfortunately closely related to resource. And just to give an example from the UK perspective, as I say, we set up what's called digital research community, and this was as an identified need through one of our stakeholder groups. And the idea is to bring together different partners across the whole research process. So it covers librarians, repository managers, researchers, IT people, research managers, research software engineers. So in a sense, it's kind of a meta community in itself, that it's trying to bring those communities together. So what we've actually tried to do to link it up with other communities is have representatives from those communities come and present. So rather than trying to think, we're going to create another community, it's more we just pull in, and it's like a web of communities, and we try to get a flow of information from one community to the next.
You still need to have a coordinator and somebody.
Yes, well, that's the next point, is resource. Resource is really important. We never underestimate with communities how much effort it actually takes. And again, I'm struggling with the digital research community because I have a tiny bit of resources assigned to it. And actually within GISC, we run several communities. I mean, it's sort of 15, 20 different communities. And actually within GISC, we're very lucky that we actually have a head of community engagement, and she set up a community. So we have a community of community managers within GISC, and it's really useful to share experiences and share strategies. But just trying to think what to wrap up with. In terms of involvement, I mean, involvement is really, and new members, that's a really, really difficult question. And I think that's one of all community engagement managers sort of grapple with. I think publishing and sharing what you do is a good way of engaging. Coming to events like this and promoting that the community actually exists is useful. But as I mentioned, having guests from different communities come and share is a good way of building community. One thing we've noticed within our GISC communities is that one way that a community will be very successful is if there's a common problem. So the accessibility community is really successful because the legislation changed and everybody realized they had to make everything accessible. So everybody wanted to share problems. Similarly, OA, open access mandates. But the community that I think gives another good example is the FORT community, which is the framework of open and responsible research training. Again, I can share these links, but they have a model of, and that theirs is very, very community driven. They have no resource, but their reward is through publication. So whenever somebody has an idea, they have a model that enables it to become a kind of short project that results in a publication. So each of them do get that sort of reward for participating.
Yeah, good models and good examples. Thanks. Maja.
Yeah, I would agree that these are really tough questions to answer, because how many communities are enough, it's just basically depends on the interest that people have in certain topics or lack thereof. So people are going to engage in a community if they perceive that the benefit of joining that community and being active in it is going to be high, right? So you cannot really answer this question because people have limited time available and they're going to invest their efforts and their time only in things that they perceive that are going to give them value back. So this is probably the answer, that the community managers need to understand what is the added value of their communities and then promote that added value to attract members and people engaging into their communities. So for gaining members, in addition to what was already said, I think that a large part of it is also word of mouth. So people who are already engaged in the community are the best advocates for the community, and they can kind of promote the community outwards if they perceive it to be beneficial for them. So they can then promote it to their colleagues as well. So this is one point that I would like to add to that. By encouraging members to be more involved, this is really tricky and we are all struggling to do that. I think it depends on what kind of community you are actually forming. If this is just a community where you share materials and you expect people to come and then get these materials and use it elsewhere, or is it a community where you expect people to engage, to communicate with each other, to collaborate, to share experiences, as is the case with our Retrain Plus community of practice. So in this latter case, I would say that some techniques that you could use to stimulate engagement would be to get people to share their stories, to share their experiences, because we all know that people like to usually talk about themselves and share what they have achieved. Also, the use of images was kind of promoted as being beneficial, so not just plain text, but images in this kind of community interactions is something that stimulates engagement. And of course, you have to be responsive as an engagement leader, so you have to respond to people that take time to respond to you and be really swift about it. You don't have a couple of posts each month and then expect people to engage on their own in the community. So yeah, I would just say maybe at the end that community engagement is not just about sharing content. It's basically developing and engaging the community to work for itself, because as community managers we can do just that much, that we kind of try to stimulate, but then the community itself has to become alive by its own at one point and start engaging on their own, in order to be actually a success. So yeah, that would be my...
Thanks, a lot of good points. Sonja, do we have more to say?
Yeah, coming again from the national perspective, like in Slovenia, we are working with rather small social science research community, and yeah, we've been offering many ideas and so on. And it was really difficult to attract researchers because they're chronically, of course, lacking time to attend and so on. But I would say that something that is very obvious, but it's very difficult actually to implement it. It's really important to be as close as possible to researchers, to understand what are actually their needs, and to provide answers and support them where they need this support. Of course, not what we think right now that is important, because maybe they don't have time now for our ideas. So at one point we decided also to involve them in our trainings, and I think that involve them as presenters as well. So it was not only we data experts presenting some concepts and so on, but they presenting their projects. And I think this was a good step forward, because they were somehow more convincing even than we were before. And around this, we also started to build thematic collections. We started to highlight those topics that are important on international level and try to build communities around this. Like COVID, of course, was very appealing, and not only appealing, but there was need to organize around this topic. Then environment environmental data, migration data. So we started to really target researchers that work on a certain topic. And I think this was the beginning of, I hope, new communities that will find or understand better why they need us and how they can use our support. But yeah, another maybe aspect that this funding and everything is based actually on competition, and yeah, open science is collaboration, and sometimes this is like in a conflict. So in a small community, sometimes researchers avoid to collaborate because they're competitors for the national money and so on. So from my side.
Yeah. Thanks. I think that's really a good point, because as trainers, we usually try to help each other, but then it's also always a question, you know, what can I actually use, because it's an authorship of a community. And I think this is something that we'll need to also look in next, I think, coming months on some of these topics, because we see that it's sometimes a burden. Venkar, do you want to add something? I think you're involved in quite many elements. How do you see also for the knowledge base for EOS, how to involve, you know, organizations to put information there? I don't know if he's still. Venkar, do you hear us?
No, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay.
You can hear me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, the questions in this slide, yeah, they're difficult. I'll just as others have said, and specifically regarding the knowledge hub, there's no doubt there's a philosophy of build it and they will come. But if this is meant to be the go-to place for anything related to EOS training, then that is the main thinking here. And the Eos Future Project is one of these flagship EC projects, so it is getting a lot of backing and publicity. And I guess that hopefully will give some kind of impetus for people to come and approach the Knowledge Hub to use it, and also to provide resources onto there. I guess for a lot of these communities, whether it's Knowledge Hub or anything else, there's a critical mass at which people start taking notice and wanting to become part of any given community. And there's a make or break point. If a newly established community doesn't have enough numbers or interest, then it may not survive. And that is an issue. I've seen it. Very poor attendance, very poor interaction, etc. And I'm not sure I have a specific answer to that. One thing I will say, though, is I'm not a fan of fragmentation. I understand the need to create specific communities. I get that. But just as there are for repositories, for data and things like that, I try and encourage people not to fragment the landscape too much. And just as you might have silos of data, then I fear that there are silos of communities as well. And if they don't communicate with each other, that's my greatest fear there. And as long as these communities communicate with each other, I think that's the most important thing.
So thank you, Venkar. If you could stay online, I would just like to wrap with quickly with the last question, just as a sentence for each. As Maja presented, we struggle quite a bit to find a good platform actually for the community, and I'm wondering, you know, what you guys are kind of using for the communities, what you are proposing. Is there anything you know that other communities could look into for that? So perhaps let's go on the opposite direction. Venkar, any ideas?
What platforms do you use for communications? So you mean just like Zoom or something, or?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, you know, I'm usually we see that, you know, email is something that every person reads. But then you take Slack and you have, all the other elements, and what is working in what would you point forward as a tool or a platform?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I use Skype mainly for direct messaging. And yes, Slack is there. We're actually implementing a Moodle instance through OPENAire. It's actually just launched, but in that we have forum features and things like that. So when we're doing our trainings, there is functionality built into there where learners can actually communicate with each other through forums, and you can have groups, etc. And that seems to be a very good method for doing so as well. Yeah, I've been using just the usual methods really for communications in terms of
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Sonja, have any ideas on that? Yeah, the thing that we are using here, mostly, the web pages and things like that are there. Maja, any further ideas of what you already presented?
Well, yeah, as I said, it depends on the budget. You probably always need license to use some of the tools and platforms which are best to cater such communications. But then I am always for free versions. So this is also why we chose at the end the Facebook group, which is not ideal, but it is what it is. So it's always a trick. But I think that here, depending on the target group that you are serving, you should look into what this target group is using and then adapt to that, because people do not want to create new accounts or use new tools that are not accustomed to. So this would be just my advice to people who are starting some sort of community communications.
Thanks. Helen?
Yeah, same message.
Practice.
keep it simple, keep it tools that people are familiar with and that are very easy to use. So the community practice, we use Zoom, we have Google Docs and Slack, but most of our communication happens through the Zoom meetings. I'm not actually a fan of having a separate platform to go to. So like I said, prefer tools that fit in with people's workflows. And I think the main piece of advice I would think is don't use Teams, because I've tried that and it really was awful.
Yes, thanks, Ricardo. Your final words on that?
Yeah, I think I would agree. It's good to use tools that are already being used by the community you're interested in. I also think it's important that things are easy to access and open in a way. So don't make things behind a login. Just make sure Google Documents are open for everybody. So it's trying to make it as easy as possible to access the tools. I think that will be my last advice, in addition to what has been said.
Thank you. Yeah, so there are different tools, different challenges, different communities that are using that. I would like with this to thank to all my presenters and panelists for this session. And yes, I mean, keep working, keep developing. If you have some ideas, contact us. And I think that we also need to do, what we see is the promotion so that people join the community and see how good they are, and also, take something out of that, but also bring their own knowledge. So thanks for everyone for listening to us. And I think now we have a break and see you in other sessions. Thanks.
Thank you, Irena, and bye to everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
In just a moment.